morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Neiman Young. I'm an assistant city manager with the City of Corpus Christi. I want to first take this opportunity to thank our partners, especially our media partners, for coming out today to help us keep the general public informed of a very high priority with the city, which is the reopening of the Mud Bridge. This is our 7th news conference on the Mud Bridge topic, and I think that goes a long way to demonstrate the city's commitment to transparency and, more importantly, our commitment to ensuring that this critical infrastructure is reopened to the public. So just a brief overview. On Monday, December 12th, the city initiated an emergency closure of the Yorktown Mud Bridge to repair a washout resulting in the damage to the bridge's riprap embankment due to erosion. City staff began developing a plan immediately to repair the Mud Bridge with the assistance of our contractor, Anderson Columbia. The plan calls for repairs on the bridge's east and west channel banks. The project was initially expected to take 1 month to complete. However, we're now looking at an extended timeline for April 2023. This new timeline is due to the city staff conducting a more thorough and comprehensive inspection of not only the bridge's top part, but its pilings, and discovered that there was additional work that we wanted to take out of an abundance of caution to ensure that the roadway was safe to the public. As a reminder, there was 3 phases to this project, and I'm happy to report that we're moving along those phases diligently and thoroughly. Number 1, phase 1 was restoring embankments along the bridge, and I'm happy to report that this phase is complete. Phase 2 was addressing the pilings that were under the bridge. As stated before, we expected that this would take approximately 70 work days to complete, and I'm happy to report that clock has started on Monday, January 23rd. Do note that it's 70 working days, not calendar days, and those working days can be affected by tidal influences or any volatile conditions under the bridge. And finally, phase 3 begins with the planned construction of the replacement bridge in 2025. As stated before, we're working very closely with our partners at TxDOT, who has agreed to expedite that timeline from replacing the bridge in 2026 to 2025. Now, our Director of Public Works, Ernesto de la Garza, has been on the ground and manages this project from the beginning, and he's going to manage it through to completion. So I don't want to steal any of his thunder, and I'm going to ask him to come up and give you all a more technical explanation on our current phases with the project. Ernesto.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Ernie de la Garza, Ernesto de la Garza, Director of Public Works. We did receive just this morning the TxDOT notes, the initial notes from their inspection, which was done underwater. We did not have the ability to do an underwater inspection with our engineer, so they had divers go and do that inspection as well as do an inspection above water. And so the initial notes show that there were no major issues found underneath the mud line, which is good because it doesn't affect our scope drastically. So that's good news. And again, we thank TxDOT for working to get us that information. We will review the final report once it comes in, because what they sent me were just the notes from the field. Once that final report is in, we'll get that to our engineer, structural engineer that came up with the scope for this work, and then validate any findings that they give us to see if everything matches up. So that's going to be in the works. And then as far as sequence, right now, our contractors are going to work starting on the rod field side, and then they're going to work, on the Flower Bluff side, and then work their way towards rod field underneath the bridge. And so they're going to go one bent cap at a time. They're doing that work, chipping away at concrete, and then doing the repairs while they're waiting for those jackets to come in, which has about a 2 to 3 week time frame since they ordered them when they started, and they were hired to work with us. So that's going to be a concurrent operation. They're going to get that work ready so that when the jackets come in, they can put those jackets on the columns and then fill it in with grout, and then be done sooner than later. And then some more good news is our contractor, Anderson and Columbia, who's managing the subcontractor for us, explained that they're in communication with them to try to get them to work additional hours per day to increase the workday, I think, to 12 hours. So if they can pull that off, that'll be better news for us so that they could be done sooner than later. And with that, I'll let you. Thank you.
The jackets.
Oh, yes, so these jackets, what they do is they're gonna first chip away at the columns that have corrosion on them. Once they chip that concrete away, they're gonna tie new steel around the columns, because a lot of that steel that is out there is rusted steel. And then what these jackets are, they're just a fiber material that encapsulates the rebar and the chipped concrete. It encapsulates the column, and then from the top, it gets filled with the grout material, and then it acts as the column itself to replace some of the corrosion, and then it gives it the structural integrity needed that was lost because of the issues with the rust and spalling of the concrete. They stay on, and yes, sir. No, I haven't seen the details of them, but I know that they go in there, and that's what they put on there.
And Ernie, you want to talk about the 7-day timeline?
Yeah, so the 70-day timeline, as Assistant City Manager Young had just mentioned, is that we are looking at counting working days and then not to confuse that with calendar days. So we did a calculation, and so say starting from Monday, we're looking at an early April timeframe. If you counted calendar days, we will be tracking the contractor's work from day one, where they started chipping away at bad concrete, to the end point of what they projected their time frame will be, with the understanding that if there are situations where there was an ability to access the work because of the high tide or there was bad weather. Yesterday, they had bad weather, they weren't able to work, so that yesterday did not count towards a working day. That's how we're going to be tracking their time. That's the goal right now, is that they're going to try to work 12-hour days, is what Anderson and Columbia had let me know. Yes, sir. Okay. Yes, yeah, so what we're doing, additional scope, but not to add time to the contract itself, is because we're taking advantage of being inside these closures. And so, as everybody knows, a lot of Yorktown has potholes or edge drop-offs that need to be repaired. So within the road closure, we're going to do road repairs now that we're there and bring that up to par with the pavement needs to get that good. So our contractor has developed scope with our engineer to get that work done. That won't add to the timeline, because while they're working underneath the bridge, we can do that prep work. In addition to that, we're going to upgrade the metal beam guard fence that is functionally obsolete, and so we're going to update that so that it's crash worthy, because some of that is rusty as well and corroded, so that's going to be upgraded as well. And so after the bridge is open, we're going to have that work completed underneath, but as well you'll have a brand new surface on top with new delineators, markers, signing, so it will appear as a brand new bridge once we're done. Yes, sir.
Do we know how far along TxDOT is in their plans to replace the mud bridge, and what cost? Could they simply go in there, tear it out, put it in, or does the engineering and everything else still have to go? Would there be a way to expedite this even quicker if they do have the
Right.
blueprints and they're ready to go, and something could be
Right.
done to get this permanently solved?
Yes, sir. So originally, this is part of an advanced funding agreement that was planned for replacement in 2026. And so what we have done since this mud bridge work had began is we were coordinating with TxDOT to try to push up that bid date from 2026 to 2025. So we have had those discussions. We've had meetings with TxDOT, and they have committed to trying to make the 2025 timeframe, with the understanding that environmental coordination has to take place for that project development process to begin. In addition to that, utility coordination has to take place. We do have a water line south of the bridge, near the bridge, which could impact our construction for the next bridge. So that coordination needs to take place. But as far as planning is concerned and commitments from TxDOT, they have committed to trying to make the 2025 timeframe. As far as specifically what steps in the process they have begun or not begun, that information we have to get formally from TxDOT in writing. Other than WebEx meetings and commitments from them verbally, that's what we have so far.
And the timeline, do you think you're gonna have this thing up and running and ready by April?
That's our goal, yes. So when we communicated with the subcontractor and we gave them the scope of the columns, we said, give us your best answer and projection of when you'll have this work done. That's where they gave us the 70-day timeframe, with the key fact that they are working days. So if they're physically able to do the work under there, they don't have any weather issues, they're anticipating a 70-day timeframe.
And that's a new timeline?
That's for phase 2, yes, sir.
And is this going to be able to withstand any type of torrential downfall once it's completed?
Yes.
We're going to get into hurricane season not too far after
Yeah,
this.
yeah, so as per our structural engineer, he can speak to the specifics about the dynamics of the structural analysis. But from, my engineering standpoint is that the condition of the bridge before this work is done, and the condition after this work is done will obviously be much better structurally than what we had before we had the sinkhole issue.
And did this spur any other checks on any of our other bridges? Because we thought this thing was fine and then it wasn't.
Correct, it did, and my assistant director of stormwater, Gabriel Hinojosa, is working to develop that very program. Phase 1 of that program is to hire a structural engineer that has the ability to take these reports from TxDOT and make decisions on what are priority repairs and what are not priority repairs, because we have, like any other program, a fixed budget to tackling these challenges. And so we'll use this program with a new structural engineer to help us budget the maintenance fixes and then make priorities and then schedule them to get repaired. But that is in the works, yes, sir. So right now, they've been using, they're calling them barges, but they're just big wooden floats is what they're calling them barges. If they have the need for an actual huge physical barge, maybe in the center of the bridge where it's 9 feet deep depth, then you'll see that later when they get to the middle. But right now, they are currently functioning and getting the work done with these wooden barges that they're making right there and then. Yes, sir. You good?
I was gonna ask you, the funding for this,
Mhm.
you guys are saying in budget, nothing's going over, anything like that for this project?
Right, so we're anticipating anywhere from 2.5 to about 3 million from the stormwater budget. And so obviously, that money has to come from somewhere. We'll have to reprioritize based on, existing programs and needs. But that's something that we'll do internally, but it won't affect anything on the immediate. Sir.
All right, again, thank you all for attending today's press conference. And I think that the takeaways for today is the importance of this corridor to not only the general public, but also to the city government. And number 2, we are working very diligently to get that bridge and that corridor open back to the commuters. And number 3, we will continue our promise to be transparent and ensuring that the users of that bridge has shared information on the timelines to get the bridge back open. We will be again meeting next week on Wednesday at 10 a.m. to have another discussion and update on the Mud Bridge. And barring any questions, I thank you all for attendance, as this concludes our press briefing. Thank you all.